Said I'm all about it. Yeah.
All right, guys, we're welcoming to the show today Emily D. Baker, or Adam. I have to let you do this intro because every time we mention Emily D. Baker, whether it's on YouTube or whether it's on the podcast, what do you say?
I always say, guys, we have Emily D. Baker, the #1 badass legal commentator on YouTube, podcast. Honestly, anything that you're watching on TV, I feel like at this point you're making appearances. So I guess everywhere. Emily, you're everywhere.
I'm a little bit everywhere. I am a little bit everywhere and I love it. I'm so glad to be on your podcast. I love podcasting. I started podcasting before my YouTube channel started to grow, and it is really just truly my favorite medium. I love it so much. So I'm happy to be here. I love getting to see y'all on YouTube too, but podcasting is just so fun.
It's just different. It's a more intimate conversation, I feel. But Emily, thank you for being here and welcome.
You know, this is, like Emily said, it is a lot more fun, I feel like, because you can have these intimate conversations. But I also enjoy watching Emily on YouTube and watching her live chat just like fly through, and she's like engaging with her community. And then I feel like for those who are listening who might not have seen my YouTube channel, when I first started having Emily on, when she was giving us her time and, you know, I was starting out, Emily's channel was not as big as it is now. It was always big, right? But then you started hitting some major celebrity lawsuits, and then it just skyrocketed. Like we were watching Emily just climb to stardom.
I don't know about that, but the channel definitely took off during live trial coverage. And that's something that there is a need for, but there isn't. In the traditional media, you don't get live trial coverage the way we can do it on YouTube, because something like court TV takes breaks, and they take commercial breaks, and then they cut parts out of the day to take those breaks. And then they have someone outside the courthouse saying, what we just saw is this, versus me live reacting at the same time you're watching it. So we're all reacting to it together. It feels like we're all kind of invested at the same time, having the same reactions, whether it's on screen or in the chat. So it really does kind of fill a need that I think we'll start to see legacy media try to duplicate, but they can't, because they're not going to curse on TV.
And I think what makes it so special, your channel so special too, is you break down all of this legal jargon that someone like me won't be able to understand.
That's
and you
my
break it down into simple, I know, but you break it down into simple ways of understanding it, and that I think is just such a huge draw to your channel.
I also think when she starts covering everything, she goes through these terms that I don't necessarily understand, but then she'll drop like an F-bomb and I'm like, oh, you got me, I'm here. I'm back in it. So
I didn't know I was coming on the podcast for you just to keep saying nice things about me. So got time. Let's just keep going. I love it.
Well, Emily, I wanted to ask you, and I know a little bit about your background, and I think it would be fun for anyone who doesn't know who Emily D. Baker is, the listeners and the viewers on YouTube, and well, the viewers on YouTube will probably know who you are, but some of our listeners on the podcast, what inspired your curiosity for law? How did you get into that? And how did you get out of it? Because you kind of left you transitioned into really YouTube.
So I will try to make a long story short. I actually did give a TED talk about law and about my transition from law, but it was more about the emotional journey, because when you're an attorney, a lot of times that career is not just what you do for a living or what you do to make money. It becomes your identity. And so I have a whole talk about the emotional journey that it took, but I always really was legally curious, but I'm also neurodivergent. I'm ADHD and dyslexic. I struggled in school all the way through college, so I didn't really think I could go to law school. When my husband and I started dating, I was still in undergrad, and one of the things he said to me is, he's like, so what was the plan after college? And I was like, God, I feel so called out. Like, what was the plan after college? I'm like, there wasn't one. I played Division I water polo, and he's like, I don't want to be mean, but you're 5'6". Like, Olympic water polo is not exactly in your future. And I knew that, and I had gotten injured playing college water polo, and I didn't have a plan. He's like, well, what do you want to do? I'm like, well, I want to go to law school, but I don't know if I can. And he's like, are you gonna just not try that? I'm like, God, this is brutal. We've now been, married for over 20 years, but that was the kind of call out that I needed. He's like, why don't you just try it? I was like, okay.
Kind of
And
like having
so-
that partner that lights the fire under your ass.
Yeah, it's just, why don't you try? Instead of deciding you can't do it, why don't you just try and see what happens? And so I, started studying for the LSATs, had my little Elle Woods moment. Never a what like it's hard, because everything felt hard about going to law school, but I loved it. I loved the way of thinking. I enjoyed my philosophy classes in undergrad. I enjoyed that kind of mental gymnastics, if you will. And so I knew when I went to law school that I wanted to be a district attorney. It's the only thing I wanted to do. My law school classes, when you get to pick your extra classes, were all focused kind of on the Constitution and on criminal justice. So once I became a DA, and not an easy job to get in LA County. So once I became a DA, I was like, this is it. Good. We're done. We're set. We're good. This is my career until I retire. I'm here with the county, got my retirement, my 401k, I'm set. And I started having health issues. I started having, seeing coworkers having health issues.
It takes a toll, right? I mean,
a huge
to
toll.
see those cases day in and day out, it's got to take a toll mentally as well.
Oh, absolutely. And I got to the point where I could not do it anymore. After illnesses and burnout and back surgeries, I was like, this isn't how I'm meant to live my life. Like, I was not living. I was going to work and coming home. It was not what anyone would consider a life. So I looked at my husband. I'm like, I have to do something else. He's like, what are you going to do? I'm like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't even care. I have to do something else. I can't keep doing this, which broke my heart, because that's the only job I ever wanted. And I loved what I did, but I could not do it anymore. I moved into consulting. And then during 2020, I was helping online business owners navigate business closures and navigate their clients' issues, and helping people figure out what the Paycheck Protection Program was. And the podcast started to grow because I was talking about it there. But then there was some stuff that was funny. Kanye West, back in 2020 was, sharing all of his music industry contracts on Twitter and calling out the music industry and peeing on his Grammy. And I was like, I want to talk about that too. Like, I want to explain what's in these contracts and how interesting they are. And then there were some big YouTube lawsuits with beauty guru Tati Westbrook. I'm like, but I'm interested in that too. And I can take I'm not embarrassed to say I watched all of the beauty world drama from like the first Dramageddon on down. Like, I watched all of it unfold on YouTube. I'm like, I want to talk about YouTube drama too. And I can explain this lawsuit. And I have a background in what happened with Dramageddon and Carmageddon and all of the things. And that kind of started to shift me into pop culture, because my clients, I had released all of them from their contracts in 2020. I'm like, let's reconvene in a year and figure out what the world even looks like. And a year later, they were like, hey, I'm like, so I have some referrals for you. I'm a YouTuber now. And they're like, okay, that's great. And my channel started to grow in that time, and I love it. And then kind of away we go. And that's when we all met, talking about housewives.
Here we are. I have a question. I wasn't even thinking about this going into this, but you and I have spoken about this before. When you were a DA, sometimes it can be a little bit nerve-wracking when you're putting someone away and then you potentially get threats, right? When they come out of prison or going into prison. From your experience, where have you received more of those threats, more of those people kind of just attacking you? Would it be online in this position as a commentator, or would it have been as a DA?
So as a DA, we did get death threats on occasion. They tended to be treated as credible because it was normally fairly credible and within a community where people could find you. The volume of threats since I've started as an online creator is much higher. Not as many credible threats, but some that have sent me to local law enforcement that have had to be dealt with. One that has gone up through the FBI and is still being dealt with from a case that I covered. But the volume is much higher. They're just not as credible. They are more harassing. So there's way more harassment. A lot of what I did as a DA, a lot of the time, it was all part of the system. And a lot of people were like, look, if you treat me with dignity and like a human, we're all just in this thing. So it wasn't the volume that it is online. And that was really surprising to me, that the volume of threats and harassment working as an online creator, and not just for me, but for all the creators I know, is just so strange to me. Even occasionally the comments of like, why won't you stop talking? It's like, so this is what I do though, right? Like I'm not creating ASMR. I'm not an animator. I'm a commentator. So talking is kind of exactly what my channel is. So that's odd. Like why, what? The online space is just so weird. And people aren't on their manners when they're on the internet. It's weird. It's a weird thing. I was not prepared for it. I'm also old. I grew up.
You're not old.
For the online space as an online creator, I am at the upper end of online creators in my mid 40s. But I grew up going to college where there aren't like videos of the things I did. Thank God for that, by the way. But everything I did wasn't online. And, we didn't engage in the same way. If you had a problem with someone, they probably came and knocked on your door and were like, yo, WTF. The online space, people have just gotten a little unhinged. And I think there's a lot of post Panini. We're on a podcast. I can say pandemic without getting suppressed.
Yes.
Isn't it delightful? Post pandemic, I think, I don't know, it feels to me like things have turned a little bit. We've had really contentious elections and everything just feels like it's gotten a little more vitriolic. It's weird.
I agree.
And sorry, Jason, I just like now every time I start talking with Emily, I have so many questions and I love picking her brain. This is why I love seeing you in person.
We had so much fun at BravoCon. We had so much fun at BravoCon.
Oh, yes,
I don't know if anyone had more fun than us at BravoCon.
I don't think so.
I don't think so either.
We had some shenanigans. And, I guess one of my next questions, I have two really, and then I'll stop cutting Jason off here. But since, I feel like being an online personality, especially at the numbers that you're reaching and where you're being seen, you have a lot of people who recognize you. So it's almost like, I guess I would relate this to Housewives, where people watch, you have the viewers who watch the Housewives. They feel so invested. They feel like they know you. They feel like they're in your house with you. And it's kind of wild. But for you being out and about, and I saw this at BravoCon, it was like every 15 steps, oh my God, you're Emily D. Baker. And I'm like, and she's like, I am. Hi. And I was like, this is wild. What would you say one of the most not bizarre, but the most interesting interactions you've had with someone, maybe a law nerd or a fan or a viewer, has been for you?
First of all, I love running into the law nerds because we're all following these cases together. So it's like running into a friend being like, for people who watch sports ball, I imagine they're like, oh my God, did you see that thing on Saturday or whatever? It's the same thing. It's like, oh my God, what was your favorite part of this trial? Or what did you think of that witness? Or which trial did you start watching? So we always have something to talk about. I love running into the law nerds. It's where I run into the law nerds that are always staggering to me. My family and I went on vacation in Huntsville. Loved Huntsville. Loved it so much. Loved the Space Center. And we went to a cave tour of the Cathedral Caverns. It was stunning. It felt to me like we were walking into a different planet on Star Wars. My 14-year-old and I debated which planet that would be. And then we were talking about like stalagmites and stalactites because my 14-year-old knows way more than I do about anything at this point because he's actively in school. And someone behind me went, oh my God, you're Emily D. Baker. We are in a cave in Alabama with like 40 people. And she had heard my voice and was like, oh my God. She's like, wait a second, Dr. B, T, G, like knew the whole family. We had the greatest conversation. So the oddest place I've run into a law nerd is in a cave in Alabama with only 40 other people. Because what are the chances? Like we don't really say where we're going to be before we're going to be there until after, we've gone, just because you never know. And especially when I'm with my kids, it's never the law nerds that I'm worried about. It's the few people that really just do not like me that I always worry about with the kids. And then I was working the snack bar at my kid's high school football game because he's in the band and band parents work the snack bar. And somebody came up and was like, can we please get a picture? I'm here. Like my nephews play for the other team. And I heard your voice. It's always, I heard you. I heard your voice. This is how I got in trouble in high school too. No matter who it was, They always heard me. They're like, I know you were involved. I heard you. So that's how it always is. The first time I ever got recognized from YouTube, I was shopping in the Beverly Center at Vuitton, and I had just done a purse video on YouTube that at the time had done really well for my very small channel. My channel was under like 3,000 and it had gotten like 60,000 views. So that was the first video. And somebody walked into the Vuitton and was like, oh my God, I heard your voice. I watched your video on this purse. I came in to buy it. And I was like, hey,
it's always the voice.
Years ago.
It's
yeah, that was like 2017.
And Emily had to tell me, by the way, Jason, at BravoCon, sometimes when I was talking about something, she's like, your voice carries. And, but since
there were times I was literally ready to put you on mute. I was like, Adam.
It's always at the most inappropriate time too. It's like, oh, you just said that. It was so loud. Everyone just heard that. I have a quick story, and I'm kind of fanning too a little bit. I always fan over you, but we were in
which is
Orange
ridiculous.
County.
Which is ridiculous, by the way. It's ridiculous that you fan over me because you're actually famous for having skills.
No, I fan over you because other people do, and then I'm like in on it, because we were in Orange County, in Newport, to do an interview with one of the former housewives of Orange County, Kelly Dodd, and we had finished the interview. We weren't doing anything that night, so Adam and I are like, let's go down to the hotel bar and just chill out, grab a glass of wine. And we started talking to this random guy, and I don't know what your stereotypical like law nerd would look like. I just didn't assume it would
looks like us. This room is my stereotypical law nerd. This room is my audience.
And he started talking. He asked Adam, hey, what do you do? And he said YouTube, and he's like, oh, I love YouTube. I'm watching YouTube right now. I was like, oh, who do you watch? And we heard your voice come out of his phone.
It's always her voice.
No way. This is Emily D.
We
Baker.
FaceTimed you, or no, we didn't FaceTime you. We called you, and we're like, "Holy shit, this is."
Yeah, and then we FaceTimed because then we talked to him.
Yeah,
yes,
and then we FaceTimed you, and to piggyback off of what you're saying, Jason, it's like Emily's everywhere, right? I feel I'm gonna we're doing a black and white, like monochromatic wall in our new house of all of our favorite memories and things that we've done. We have to put Emily on the wall, and I wanted to bring this back really quick because I just got reminded from our trip to BravoCon. You're telling me about some of these really fun moments of meeting people, the law nerds or anyone who might be following you, and also kind of the dangers of posting in real time for people who might not necessarily be a fan of yours.
Yeah.
When we're at BravoCon, I'm like a kid in a candy store, and I look so dumb, and I'm walking up to people who I think the interaction is going to be great. Emily's with me, and then I walk up and I just get like the dirtiest look, and I'm like, did I say something? And Emily's like, ooh, that was twice now in one day. We might want to relax on this for a second. But have you ever had a negative interaction where somebody has walked up and said, like, I disagree with you, or I don't enjoy you, or you need to change something?
Not in person. All of those come into my email inbox or my DMs. I haven't had that experience in person, though. I would hope, again, if people watch me for any length of time, I am always open for a discussion. If you want to disagree with me, good, you should. I'm talking about legal cases. If you think I was too harsh on, Amber Heard's attorney by kind of, mocking her a bit, then that's fine. I am happy to have a conversation and be like, I get it. And I told you at the beginning, this woman just wore on my nerves from the beginning, but it's fair. Maybe I was. I'm always happy to recalibrate and have a conversation. What I don't take is just a straight up vitriol. I don't even engage it, but I'll always engage a conversation. Hey, did you think about this? No, I didn't. I don't know everything. I can't possibly think of everything from every single angle. I have one perspective, and that's from the life that I've lived and the experiences that I've had. So I'm always happy to have a conversation. It's different with legal, I think, because I really do try to stick to the documents and give grace to the people involved in the things. I will sometimes take shots at their lawyers. The lawyers are getting very well paid. They're very highly educated. They take themselves way seriously. It's okay if we make fun of the lawyer who spelled Kevin Hart's name, Kevin Hard, for an entire legal pleading. That gave me joy for the day to call Kevin Hart, Kevin Hard. It was hilarious. But I'm not, when we talk about like Erica Girardi's suits, there's a lot of room to criticize Erica Girardi, but Garcelle said it best. Erica can do that for herself. We're just going to stick to the legal filings and try to give grace. So no, I haven't had that experience, but I'm sure it'll happen at some point. But even when we ran into Jen Shaw at BravoCon, she was lovely and gracious. And I really try to treat people like humans in all of my coverage, but that's how I worked as a DA too. Just because I'm prosecuting someone doesn't mean they're not a human who's had a life and either made mistakes or ended up in circumstances that have been awful. So, if we lead with that, I think we're going to end up in a pretty good place most of the time.
Since you brought up Erica, Jason and I, we went out with my family and we took my dad for Father's Day to Hibachi, and we had this woman sitting there. It was her birthday, and she was sitting there with her husband celebrating her birthday, and she was having some shots, having a good time, right? And all of a sudden she looks across and she recognized Jason, and she's like, "Jason, up and Adam." I'm like, "Just Adam." And she's like, "Up and Adam." And she just jumped up.
Look, you have Up and Adam in neon behind your head. It's how people recognize you. You're going to get called Up and Adam no matter what.
All the time. And I'm always just like, "Just Adam." And she came over and my family was like, "Oh, this is different." And she looks at me and the first thing she says is, "Can I just tell you really quick? I feel like you are way too hard on Erica and you need to change that." And I was like, "Oh, my whole family's right here. Why does this always happen to me?" But I guess it's because I'm not talking about just the facts and the legal. I'm not talking about legal at all. I'm kind of sometimes saying, well, this doesn't make any sense. Like, what about the victims, and sort of giving an opinion and taking a side. And I guess that's the difference.
An opinion. And people are allowed to have a difference of opinion. I just always ask that they do it respectfully, because I think you do your commentary respectfully. And so, hey, I think you're too harsh. Can you dial it back? I think is a fair difference of opinion, and it's fair. Your audience feels very comfortable with you. Yes. They get real comfortable in the comments.
Yes, they do get very comfortable.
Real comfortable.
Jason, before I know that you have a couple more questions for Emily before we have. Emily is a very busy woman, you guys, so we don't get to keep her all day as much as we would love to.
I could truly talk forever, but we could absolutely chat forever. And even though we got to spend days together chatting, we still could talk forever. But that's the fun. That's when you're with people that you enjoy, is when it's like, oh, and then this, and then this. So anyway,
I love that. I could talk to you about so many different things, and I think this is what makes your channel so different. But when you went into YouTube, let's say, did you have an idea of how you wanted to portray yourself, or did you just go in wanting to be yourself? Because you're pretty recognizable, and you have purple hair, you have some tats, you use curse words, your studio looks so fresh and fun, and you just make your content so entertaining. And I know you started off doing a lot of tech reviews and stuff, but how did you go into YouTube thinking, I want to do
be
this?
A character?
Are you not a character, but you watch a lot of legal commentary on YouTube, and it's dry.
It's boring.
It's a little boring. They sit in their office and they kind of go through the documents like very,
lawyerly.
Lawyerly is probably the best word to describe that. But did you have an idea of what you wanted to do, or did you just were like, fuck it, I want to be myself?
When I first started YouTube, when I was really struggling with, so I went through, when I say health issues, it was like a year and a half of 15 different specialists. I had gotten exposed to tuberculosis at work, working at a juvenile facility, had gotten treated for that. I had adrenal fatigue. I was off of work constantly. I had to take a leave of absence to actually recover, because I was getting sick all the time because my immune system just bottomed out. And in that course of recovering, I herniated my back. So I had a lot of time at home where I had no one around. Like, everyone I know has a job. So I was looking for community. I couldn't talk about law. I love and still love tech creators on YouTube. iJustine, MKBHD, and so many others. And so I was like, I can talk about tech and what I love about tech. And so I started making YouTube videos for community and for fun. Some of my early YouTube videos are fucking horrible. And I watch them now and react with them with my members community on occasion. Let's pull one out of the vault and make fun of Emily. But I'm glad I did it, because when I started leaning into wanting to do legal commentary, I knew that I wanted to come from integrity, but I had also gone through trying to figure out who I was, not as a DA. And if I can't show up as that, then I don't want to show up online. I'm also ADHD. Like, I don't have the capacity to be anyone other than myself. And I had already done that in consulting. My consulting business when I first left the DA's office was very buttoned up, very lawyerly. But then when I would go and speak at presentations and on stage, people are like, oh my God, you're so fun in person, but you're not quite the same. I'm like, right, I'm not as much fun on the internet. They're like, right, why? And I'm like, oh, I'm still worried about other people's judgment. That's weird. I don't want to do that at all. So I had already kind of gone through some of those iterations of how do I show up in this new space as myself, and who even is myself anyway? Because as a DA, there's a certain way to show up, not with purple hair and the tats were covered with suit sleeves. So I'd already done that. I'd already had a whole career where I kind of dimmed my shine a little bit, where I couldn't make quippy jokes, where a judge almost fined me for making a jury laugh and actually just chewed me out about making a jury laugh unintentionally on my part. So I had already done that. And so when I showed up on YouTube to do legal commentary, I didn't want to do that anymore. And I don't always do it perfectly. I don't always say things right. There's times I've not expressed myself eloquently, and I've learned and I've continued to grow into that. And I let my audience know, look, I'm a live streamer. There's times I will get numbers backwards. I will pronounce names wrong. That's why I bring the documents up on screen. So if I say it wrong, y'all can see, you can see it in the chat and correct me. But I knew that the only way I could really show up sustainably is to show up as myself. And I never wanted anyone to meet me and be like, oh, you're 100% not what I expected. Who I show up on a live stream is who I show up at dinner. I curse less when I'm at my children's school for events. That's about the only mitigation is the amount of cursey words get dialed up or dialed back. But I am who I am, and it's funny because I've gotten, especially with Depp Heard, emails from people that I've known since elementary school who are like, oh my God, I saw you on the internet. It's so good to see you. You're exactly the same. I'm like, yep.
That's a compliment.
I need to take a page from Emily's book, because I feel like sometimes on the internet, you want to act a certain way or be kind of like polite or just like sort of, I don't know. And then in real life, I'm like, wee. So maybe, I don't know. That's inspiring. Thanks, Emily.
You are a lot of fun. And look, people are going to judge you no matter what you do at this point. If you're online, people are going to judge you for something. And I'm just okay with that, because that's on them. There are people who are annoyed by my face, my voice, my purple hair, the fact that I have toys in my background. I think they're hilarious. But the law nerds get me. My audience, when I talk about something like band or theater, my audience is like, I was in band, I was in theater, I was this. I'm like, look, if you played like D&D in high school, you're probably in my community now. It's why we're called the law nerds. The amount of people that know how many TARDISes I have in the background of my videos lets me know that my people have found me. So I feel like we have the big old nerd table, and we've got like the band kids, the theater kids, the goth kids, and we've all grown up and we get to hang out together and giggle about growing up in the 90s. So, and then occasionally somebody will be like, oh my God, that was before I was born. I'm like, shh.
You're like,
you don't need to leave
asshole.
those comments.
No.
I know you were born in the 2000s. Shh.
Emily, since you started your YouTube channel, obviously you've had a lot of incredible opportunities. Maybe you didn't even expect these opportunities, but you've been all over the place. What would you say would be one of the biggest opportunities to date?
I don't know. There's between the opportunities we can't talk about yet are still, we have stuff still in the hopper. I've been surprised by all of it. The thing that was most interesting to me was the LA Times did a profile, and it was on the front page of the calendar section. And the reach outs I got from like defense attorneys I had worked with who were like, I opened my paper and I saw your face and your hair is purple. I was like, hi, I'm a YouTuber now. That was really cool because it's something that my parents really connected with. That's their hometown paper. They still live where I grew up. So that was really fun. Getting to be part of ABC's The Year 2021 and talking about the different cases that happened was really meaningful. And then being asked to be part of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard Discovery Plus documentary was a really great opportunity, because I'm glad to bring what I do to other traditional media. There are some in my space that do not want to deal with traditional media at all, and it's kind of us versus them. I think there's a way to bridge the gap between how traditional media does things, because again, they have corporations and boards of directors to answer to. I don't. I have my audience to answer to. That's my board of directors. And that's a blessing for me, but I'm happy to try to bridge that gap. And the Law Nerds have cheered me on every step of the way. They've always been like, oh my God, I saw you here. I saw you there. A clip of my voice is in a tribute to a YouTuber who passed that my kids loved and I loved, Technoblade. My audience let me know. I didn't even know it was in the YouTube tribute. So I also love doing that stuff because my audience also, the Law Nerds also dig it. So it's been really fun. But the stuff that my mom can see that's not on YouTube makes it feel like I have a real job. Like being on local news in Los Angeles that my mom can like turn on the television and see is one of those things where she's like, oh, you're on the TV. I'm like, you know, you can put YouTube on the TV, right? Like that I can just be on your TV, but that's okay, Mom. Yes. I was on Channel 7. It's fine.
I love, do you ever find it challenging since you do cursey words on YouTube, like when you are invited to do a big special or something like that? Is it very easy for you to turn that off and not be like, fuck, you know?
It is, but I think I've cursed since I can remember. I've been a kid who has cursed, but I also have high people pleasing tendencies. So I didn't want to get in trouble in school for cursing. So I was very good at kind of context switching. And this is something ADHD people are really good at, is kind of masking the wildness sometimes. So I'm pretty good at switching it. And my audience knows me. So I will always kind of pause and just kind of raise an eyebrow and say something else. And they know what I mean. So you will see it when I'm like, yeah, that was wild. Wild is not all of what's running through my head. So I'm used to that, and I'm used to kind of turning it on and off. There was one time when I was a lifeguard in my teens where I was yelling at some kid to stop running, and I'm like, what the fuck? Stop running. It whipped around. I was like, damn it. It only happened once, but you can't scream obscenities at like a 7-year-old.
The kid's like running, you like take off your slipper, your water slipper, and you just like chuck it at the back of the kid. You're like, fuck.
You learn to mitigate the cursey words when you're yelling over like a megaphone. But no, it hasn't been an issue, though. There's times I want to use the language of the Law Nerds that I can't always use in traditional media, but it hasn't been an issue. I'm a lawyer. I'm trained to be able to talk. You know, you got to be able to express yourself most of the time.
Out of the biggest cases that you've covered, right? I know Johnny Depp was huge, and I know
it was huge.
You're talking about one currently, the Darrell Brooks case, right?
Yeah, the Darrell Brooks case is really sad.
It's unbelievable, actually, and really hard to talk about, I'm sure. But what do you think is going to come up in his sentencing?
The sentencing is going to be difficult, and I know that the thing that I appreciate about what I get to do is I get to bring everyone into the courtroom with me and kind of be the guide. Like, this is what this is going to be like. I've done victim impact statements where I've stood next to victims. I've done victim impact statements where I've read the statement for the victim. I've never successfully done that without crying, because I don't know how you can read a first person impact statement without it affecting you. I did not have that skill. So I know how emotional these impact statements are going to be. And I've been trying to prepare my audience. This is going to be a difficult day. There are cases that I won't cover because I just don't think I can. Because I've done this work. There's another case that's being televised right now, the Parkland trial, which was just a penalty phase. Those victim impact statements are gut wrenching, but also a lot of what I do is pop culture commentary. It's kind of quippy. We can be fun. We can curse. There's nothing that's not devastating about murdered kids. There's nothing not devastating about that. So, I will give commentary after the fact about stuff the judge is doing with the attorneys, but I'm never going to give commentary on parents trying to express their grief over losing their kids at school. And I'm not going to cover it day in and day out and then send my kid off to high school. So
right.
I like sticking to pop culture, not just because it works well for the way I like to talk about cases, but the other cases are very emotionally hard. So the Brooks sentencing, the victim impact statements, I think are going to be very hard. We saw one individual yell out in court when he was convicted, "Burn in hell, you piece of shit." I think that's a preview of the anger and the sorrow that we're going to get. But it's a really important part of the process. So for this case, we're going to do it all together as a group, and kind of holding space as a community, I also think is important. So that's why I tend to stick to pop culture, because heavy cases are very, very heavy.
Question for you. If with a case like this, and we're talking about sentencing and you're covering it, you know, I know that when you talk about pop culture and like Johnny Depp, Amber Heard, what's going to happen? Is somebody, you know, going to have to put out a big payout or something like that, right? But for this, when it's this serious and you're talking about what is the sentencing going to be? Wouldn't you already think in your head like life in prison or maybe death penalty? Like you kind of know.
This case, death penalty is not on the table because of the state he's in, just doesn't have it. And so people are like, well, what is the sentencing going to be? I'm like, I'm not going to run over under because he's never getting out of prison. So for me, it doesn't matter if he gets 500 years plus 6 life sentences or 600 or 700 or 800. At that point, doesn't matter. He's getting life. So it's going to be, the technical sentence will be like life plus life plus life plus life plus life plus 600 years or whatever. But what I try to do when I have those conversations, instead of guessing at the sentencing when we're already looking at never getting out, is talk about the fact that there's a lot to be said for no matter what his sentence is, it doesn't undo anything. And often it doesn't make anybody feel any better. The victims' families aren't going to heal faster because he's been sentenced. Maybe they will. Maybe it gives some closure, but they're still having to go through the grieving process. And so this person being in custody for the rest of their life, a lot of the times I found people are like, but what was it all for? Like this, everyone is ruined in this. There's no positive outcome. So I don't like guessing at sentencing. When we're looking at a sentencing like a Jen Shaw or a Josh Duggar, where there are sentencing guidelines and ranges, and we can talk about the policy behind those and how those came about, I feel like there's room to educate. When it's someone who's going to prison forever, it's just, now it's talking about the other side of it. So that's how I kind of differentiate between the two.
And that kind of just made me like a little depressed.
It's hard stuff, but it's also a part of our system that we don't talk about enough. Also, we don't talk about enough with compassion. It's real easy to meet cases like that and Parkland with anger. It's much harder to also process the rest of the stuff going on. And so that's one of the things I try to talk about, but it's also why I don't cover a ton of criminal cases, even though I was a criminal attorney. It's because I was a criminal attorney. It's not entertainment, you know, it's
right.
Sad.
On the flip side, when it comes to celebrity, when it comes to pop culture and celebrity cases, what has been your favorite one that you've covered that you wake up and you're like, I cannot wait to see the shit that goes down today?
There's a difference between covering a case, because I have a favorite case that I covered just from all the mess and deliciousness of it. But there's a difference between covering cases that are going through court in documents and covering cases that are going through court on video. There were moments in Depp v. Heard that were so ridiculous. Spicy Draco was one of my favorite. The TMZ Morgan, the TMZ employee who came in and was like, same could be said for you, getting your 15 minutes. It's like, what is happening in court today? The wheels have come off. And now Heidi Klum is here. Like, this is just a parallel universe. And so I love that. But my favorite case that has not been topped yet is Colin versus Cuthbert, the very feisty case out of the UK over cakes shaped like caterpillars, because Aldi went on a social media spree about the case that was so delightfully shady and funny. And so there's this whole intellectual property case going on, and then this whole social media war. I think the Utah Cookie Wars is going to rank right up there, because the Utah Cookie Wars case is popping off. And I love a food case. I think it's really fun to talk about. And these intellectual property concepts get woven in there, but also crumble cookies. You guys, do you have a crumble near you? You probably have like 7 crumbles near you. Have you ever done?
I don't know if we have one here, but I've had
We're not eating this shit. What are you talking about?
I've never heard of crumble.
Because you have abs, right? I get it.
No.
That's fine. You're healthier than all of us. Fair. Adam's so uncomfortable right now.
Because I'm like, I don't. But I've never heard of crumble.
Crumble took the TikTok girlies by storm, right? So they have really pretty cookies. The menu rotates every week. You can order them on an app. They started in Utah. I think the reason all these cookie chains started in Utah is because people just aren't drinking. They're like, we can go get cookies on a Saturday. I'm like, okay, sure, that's not what I was doing in my 20s on a Saturday, but this is how these cookies took off. So they became very social media friendly. Crumble sued these other cookie makers. One of them is called Dirty Dough, and they're in Arizona. Very different brands, even from the name. Crumble's very pink and light and aesthetic. It looks like an early 2010 Instagram feed. It's like perfectly curated. Dirty Dough is kind of like, we got cookies. We're going to name them like Big Chunk and shit like that. So Crumble's suing Dirty Dough. So Dirty Dough took out a bunch of really sassy billboards all over Utah and was like, our cookies won't crumble under a lawsuit and stuff like that. So now there's this social media war being waged between Crumble and Dirty Dough and another one. And now there's all the cookie wars, and social media has been taken over by hashtag cookie wars. And at the end of the day, Crumble, who has now become a pretty huge cookie brand, they all just kind of look like dicks because they're like trying to shut down the little guy. And so it's a really fun back and forth over giant Instagrammable cookies. What's more fun to talk about than that?
I mean, that sounds
happening
amazing.
in the world. What?
Right. Utah Cookie Wars. Look at the hashtags. People are deeply invested in the Utah Cookie Wars. So I'm excited to get back to that when we're covering cases by documents and seeing, like, I would normally tell people, if you're in a lawsuit, stay the fuck off of social media. If you are a massive corporation, there are some exceptions to the rule because you have in-house counsel and you have a publicist and PR strategist. You might have crisis PR. Aldi kind of taking pot shots over Caterpillar cakes is not going to damage their brand or their lawsuit. Same with Crumble. Others taking to social media can very much hurt their public image. And again, I think we've seen that with Erica Girardi. We've seen her public image be more damaged because of the way she's engaged on social media instead of just staying silent. So the rules are different if you're a mega corporation versus like a personal brand, an individual celebrity.
The first thing I'm doing when we get off of this interview is going on social media and hashtagging cookie wars, because
I'm going to have to send you the link to my Cuthbert video. So this Caterpillar back here was sent from the UK. It is Cuthbert, but I will have to send you the link to my Colin Cuthbert video because I go through all the tweets from Aldi that are hilarious. They're hilarious. They changed the box for the cake and it had said like serves like 6 to 10. And so they changed the box on social media and it says serves 6 to 10 years and they put little jail bars on it. So it's this little caterpillar face behind jail bars in a cake box. Just stuff like that. That was so funny. They're like, we're calling our lawyers. It was brilliant. Their social media team all deserves raises. It was great.
If I had a final question, it would probably be, because I always like to end off and just want to know, like, where would you want, for someone who has been as successful as you, where would you hope to reach for? Like, do you have any bar that you're like, I have to hit this? And the only reason I asked that was because I was casually watching the Paris Hilton documentary, and when she was like, I can't have a child yet. And her sister was like, why, Paris? What are you like? What's stopping you? She's like, well, when I hit 100 million, I said I would have a child. Then I wanted to hit 500 million. And then that wasn't enough. Now, once I hit 1 billion, I can settle down and I can have a kid. Like, do you constantly feel like you're raising those bars? Sorry for the Paris Hilton thing.
I love the Paris Hilton thing. The reason I kind of roll my eyes is because I was thinking of like where we were in our life when we had kids, and it was, you're never ready to have kids. That's why it's so funny, because once you've had kids, you can look at people and be like, no, but you're never ready. Like, there's never any amount of like therapy or preparation or size of your house or staff that can prepare you for having a kid. You're never prepared. You just either go for it or you don't go for it. It doesn't matter how, it doesn't matter. Money can make things easier, but you're never prepared. No, I don't. It's terrible. My team's like, what are the goals for 2023? And I'm like, not work all the time. I would like a little bit more balance. I would like a little bit more balance. So most of my goals are personal goals. My son and I, my oldest and I, do archery together, and we had been doing archery competitions. I have not had time. So getting back to some of my hobbies and building in those systems. But I love my community. So I'm excited to hit, we'll hit 700,000 or 750 and push towards 1 million on YouTube. But that's a number I don't control. So I'm not going to be like, if I don't hit 1 million by this time, I'm going to be disappointed. I have no control over that. I can show up for my community, cover lawsuits, and make good content. and I can control how much time I spend working and how much time I spend with my family. So those are really the goals, are how I live my life. I want to travel not just for work, and be able to do that a little bit more. So it's really working a little bit less that is the goal, not benchmarks. But also, I spent, again, 10 plus years in a career where it was, I want to get promoted to this level, and then I want to do this type of trials. So I've had a lot of a career to do that. And I found the same thing Paris Hilton did. It's like, oh, I've achieved this, but it doesn't matter because now there's this, and now there's that, and now there's a special unit, and now there's this other special unit. And it just...
Is there a dream appearance? Like, do you have career-wise, I mean, you've been on so many different networks, but is there like that one Good Morning America? I don't know. Like you were on E! News. You were...
Don't miss the emails.
Can you tell where Adam's coming from here? Because obviously we have some benchmarks that we like to hit over here.
Here's the thing about TV appearances. 1, they make you leave your house. 2, they make you get up real fucking early. 3, professional makeup takes a whole lot of time. So does hair. And 4, they put the cameras down low. Who does that? What person decided to put the cameras damn near at the floor and point them up at you because it's dramatic? It's so rude. Camera up, point it down. We all learned this with selfies. So I'm open to opportunities, and I'll say yes. Is there any opportunity that I'm chasing? Truly not this year. I mean, it's been really still rebalancing, moving out of California to Tennessee. We moved in 2020. So a lot of my goals are really truly life goals, not work goals, because I'm so happy showing up doing what I do. I want the Murdaugh trial to actually happen in January. That is something I would very much like to happen. I have no control over that at all, but please don't push this trial back. You said you were going. You said you were going to mount up and ride. So just do it. Don't push the trial. So things like that, I'm ready for them to fall into place. Like, don't push off the Shaw sentencing. Let's wrap up the year where we know what's happening. But things I have control of are really just my life. We might have a lot of writing to do in 2023. So
wow.
When I say I need a little bit of time, there's some projects that I'm working on, but dream appearance, I mean, not at this point. Really. I mean,
that's really special though. No, that's special because I think that it's almost like you're prioritizing mental health, like your life, your family, you have kids, you have an entire husband, like you've hit so many different, milestones. So it makes sense that you're like, at this point, like, I know this is a well-oiled machine as long as I keep giving what I need to it. But I feel like I can also sort of step back a little bit, embrace other opportunities, and kind of focus on what I have right here in my house with a little orange tail, like swaying back and forth in front of you. That makes sense. And that's special. I
wanted to do content creation to have more control over my life. And we just passed Halloween 2020. We had just passed 5,000 subscribers on my YouTube channel. And I will never forget that night going out with my kids. I'm like, this is wild. I might just be able to do this. And the reason it mattered so much for me is because in years past, I had missed these Halloween parades they host at school with the kids in their costumes are always at like 10 o'clock in the morning. There were Halloweens that I had court and I could not go and just be available to do the things my kids were doing at school. And so when I chose content creation, I was also choosing myself and my family. And so it's real easy to just default into work all the time mode. And so it's a constant push-pull to not do that. And that's something I can continue to get better at. And I've brought on a team to help me with that blocks out my calendar and is like, no, you're not working today. You have, my kids in band. I get to just go be a band mom on Fridays. And that really does mean the world to me because at the end of the day, life's short. And
how nice you've created this place that you can come have your dream appearance whenever you get on YouTube, whenever you go live. That is it. And for your community that I mean, going to one of your live chats, sometimes it's incredible.
Wild.
I'm like reading things and then it keeps going and going.
It's
and
really
going
hard
and going.
to read the things because they just fly.
Can I tell you what we set our slow mode to?
Oh my gosh.
Our slow mode is regularly at 300 seconds, which for everyone listening that doesn't YouTube, it means that if you are chatting, you can only send a chat every 300 seconds as one individual. But when you have 50,000 people in the chat, it's still going so fast. And people are like, turn slow mode on. I'm like, we have maxed out slow mode. There is no slower mode. So our slow mode is always on. Once we get to about 10,000, we tend to bump it up. We try to keep it at 90 to 100 seconds if we're under 10,000, but we haven't been under 10,000 on a live stream in a little bit. So
Hair
we have
flip.
slow mode.
Hair flip.
We have to keep the slow mode up a little bit, but then our members figured out that if you are a member of the channel, slow mode does not apply to you. So,
That's amazing.
Oh,
that's
shit.
become a real big benefit for our channel members who just want to chat with the Law Nerd community. So it's been fun. What do you want to share what your dream appearances are, or are we keeping them to ourselves? Are we putting it into the universe? What are we doing?
No, honestly, I think for Jason had an entire dream career. And for me, a little bit, this whole thing with YouTube and some of the fun things, like especially when I did the Jen Shaw interview and that made like GMA and stuff like that. I'm not on it, but it's still kind of featured in those little moments. Like when Wendy Williams was like, who the hell is this guy? And brought up the thing. I was like, this is really fun and cool, because when I started my YouTube channel, I didn't have a lot of confidence, and all of the people that I was working with in West Hollywood and LA, they're like, you're going to embarrass yourself. You're so thirsty. You look stupid. And now I don't hear that.
That's so mean.
I mean,
this is why we moved out of LA.
Do you
Right.
remember my friend Emily, without naming names? Like, do you remember my friend in our bitchy banter that you're like, I'm a little uncomfortable. And I'm like, this is just our banter. But
You're like, this is just our banter. I'm like, I have to leave.
Yeah.
I don't know if you might hate each other.
Yeah, but we don't. And, I think for me too, especially focusing on the new studio, I just always want to expand. I think I'm too work focused. Jason always tells me this. I want more interviews. I want more sit-down interviews. I would love to do a streaming service. I would love to one day have my own sort of talk show segment on, I don't know, Peacock, or maybe even Heather Dubrow's new network. I don't know, but I feel like
I love it.
It just doesn't stop, and I'm not afraid to do anything. I feel like YouTube is just the beginning, and I kind of like not knowing, but then I'm like, what the fuck's about to happen? I need to know. So it's hard.
I think there's absolutely, in everyone's kind of journey, a hustle season. I feel like I've just done it. Like I've passed, like that season of my life is past, and I'm thankful for it. But you can't learn the lessons to actually be content, because people are like, wait, are you happy with that being your goals? I'm like, yes, I'm very, very content with where I'm at. And I love it. And I've told people, look, it's going to take a lot to make me leave my house. And I am not lying. If you want me to leave my house to come and do an interview or whatever, there has to be a real good reason for it, because I can flip on my camera and my microphone and talk to my audience. I don't need to do anything other than that. But it takes the career that came before for me to be content doing this and not want to push more in this season. Adam, the fact that you're in a season where you're like, I am going to reach for all of the stars, do it. Absolutely do it. And you should do it. And you should keep reaching for the interviews, because the interviews will bring all of the other stuff that you're talking about. And, would it be great if YouTube ever put one of my videos on like the trending page? Sure. Is it going to happen? No. Would I love to be acknowledged as a streamer in my space? Sure. Am I going to get beat out by the Minecraft bros? Always. And so I'm kind of just like, I'm an anomaly on the platform, but we're just going to keep going. I keep pushing YouTube to put law as a category when you can categorize your videos, because you can do like news and politics. I'm like, pass. And you can do entertainment. I'm like, some of what I cover is not entertainment. It's law. It is entertaining. So those are the kinds of things that I'm excited to work with the platform and continue to work with. But really, I'm just kind of on the river. Kind of we're gonna see where it goes in this adventure for the next year, and set goals as appropriate. But I love that you're in a season of push, Adam. Go for it.
Thanks, Emily.
It makes me tired hearing about it. But
it makes me tired too.
Listen, with your whole team and everything that you have with scheduling, that makes me tired thinking about it too.
Jason and I are gonna go over here and be old together, and you can just embrace your inner housewife. It's gonna be fantastic.
Yes.
I'm like a puppy. I'm like squirrel.
I love that. And I think there's something so fun and balancing about that. And again, it's all seasons, and it's fun for a season, and it's the right season for you to push, and you should. But I bet you if a streaming service was like, hey, do you want to do this? They might not be able to pay you what YouTube pays you.
oh, then I'm going to be like, I'm not in that season of my
No.
life.
Uh-huh. So it's just, there's got to be a real good reason. I was talking to one of the, I won't disclose who, but I was talking to someone with one of the traditional media appearances I was doing. And I was like, we were talking about YouTube and stuff. And I had been approached about other opportunities in traditional TV. And the conversation was really, why would you leave your house to have less control and get paid less? And I'm like, that's exactly what my answer has been to everything. Why would I be up at 4 a.m. to have more restrictions, less control for less? I'm not here for less anymore. And what my more looks like is different than others, but I know exactly what I want. So it's good. It's good for me.
Yeah, we've had those conversations before about podcasts and stuff, but no, I completely agree with you. Guys, by the way, I'm not leaving my house for anything. No, I'm just kidding.
I mean, I sound bordering on agoraphobic, but really, when I get to work from home, I see my kids when they walk in the door from school and get to spend that time with them before I go back to work. And it's just, this is the season of life. I mean, as my kids get older, will I shift back into a season of being everywhere? Possibly. But for now, I just, I want to go on a Disney cruise and turn off my phone for a week and not worry about it. We're very simple over here.
You're literally going to check into your Disney cruise and you're going to get settled in. You're like, oh, this is so nice. And there's going to be like a little squad, like a little family. And they're going to be like, Emily. You're like,
It would be fun. It would be fun to have friends. I'm sure we will run into people. It'll be nice to go onto Twitter and be like, on vacation, bye. Click and just delete it off my phone and be gone for a week. But that's the nice thing about having choice. And I feel really blessed to have the ability to choose how I live my life every single day. And that's something I never thought I would have in a career that tells you how your time is accounted for. So we really get to live a really special life. And that's a cool thing.
well,
I agree. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing all of that with us.
Jason,
it's inspiring to listen to you, to be content with, I think, you found this place where you have an audience where you can be yourself and give yourself to people and you're happy and content. A lot of people can't find that. So
I also think
did have to leave LA.
Yeah.
Well, there's that.
So did
the push for more, the external push for more is also something that people might need distance from. If there's not an internal drive for more, sometimes that external push for more can push you over the edge. And I just don't feel that anymore, truly. And for me, it took a little bit of physical distance.
Well, and I think that too, this was such a, honestly, and again, guys, we're like sitting here like riding Emily's clock, but I think that's such a positive way to kind of cap this off.
Emily, for anyone listening, where can we find you? I know you're on YouTube, you are everywhere, but YouTube is your main platform. I know you have a podcast called The Emily Show. Do they correlate, or are they two different things?
They do correlate. So I'm at the Emily D. Baker everywhere on social media. So that's how you can find me, the Emily D. Baker. I put up the podcast on all of your favorite podcasting apps. It's also in a video version up on YouTube. So you can find The Emily Show wherever you're looking. So I made it easy to find. One handle, all the places.
One handle. Yeah.
Handled.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today. We appreciate your story and just how much light that you can put onto these cases and help a person like me understand what the hell is happening and how do we get to this place.
Enough credit at all. Both of you don't give yourselves enough credit, but I try to just bring it to all of us that have like a little inner Leonard. Like, we want to understand what's going on in the world around us. I love it.
Well, thank you.
We love you, Emily. Thank you for joining us.